What is the most dangerous idea today? The real danger is the belief that religion must never be questioned. The moment you ask why about a religious belief, the moment you question a scripture, a doctrine, or a ritual, you suddenly become the enemy. Someone to be silenced, punished, jailed, or even killed. That fear has a name: blasphemy. People imagine blasphemy as loud insults, crude jokes, or wild attacks on the sacred. But in its simplest and honest meaning, blasphemy is nothing more than questioning religious ideas, doctrines, rituals, institutions, and stories without attacking the people who believe in them. But in societies built on devotion and obedience, even this simple act becomes unacceptable because it touches the one sensitive point that organized religion cannot allow anyone to examine. When someone asks why, they aren't just analyzing a single myth, they are examining the entire structure of belief. And that is why religious institutions respond so aggressively when someone questions the systems that support them. You can walk into a public space and say that a god is foolish, inconsistent, unjust, or confused, and nothing will happen. No thunder will strike, no lightning will fall, and no deity will appear to argue back. But if you aim the same level of questioning at a priest, pastor, bishop, guru, imam, or the powerful institutions that build around them, the atmosphere immediately fills with accusations of hurt feelings, wounded sentiments, and claims that civilization itself is under attack. Almost always, the demand is the same. They want atheists to stop criticizing or cross-questioning their prophets, whether it is Muhammad, Christ, or some Maharaj. They believe in something, and anyone who refuses to share that belief automatically becomes an enemy who must stop questioning their faith. To them, faith is like a sugar-coated candy that someone is trying to snatch away. They will fight tooth and nail to defend a belief that they don't realize is not built on evidence at all. It is simply something that got written into their minds when they were young. If you criticize a scripture, they quickly shift the conversation. Instead of addressing the flaws or contradictions in the book, they ask you to debate something else entirely. Christians and Muslims often ask directly if you want to die and reach heaven instead of burning in hell. Hindus remind you of the endless cycle of birth, warning you that you might return as a cockroach in the next life. All of this is just an easy way to drag the person away from the topic of outdated scriptures. It's a pity, really. Such a poor attempt to dodge the actual question. Blasphemy laws in every form, from ancient rules that burned heretics alive to modern laws that send people to prison, were never created to protect gods. If God existed the way scriptures claim, they wouldn't need protection from humans. These laws are designed to protect the institutions that speak in the name of gods, institutions that cannot survive open questioning and therefore use people's emotions as weapons to silence criticism. The claim that if I feel offended, you should be punished is not a moral idea at all. It is a strategy used by those in power to control speech, punish disagreement, and hide it behind the language of moral outrage. And once offense becomes the basis for law, anything can be labeled unacceptable. Eating in front of someone who is fasting, talking about evolution in front of creationists, explaining the origin of the universe where mythology dominates, or even saying that gravity does not bend to anyone's beliefs. When feelings replace evidence, reality itself becomes optional. Religion tells people not to question, while science teaches us that every claim must be examined, tested, and understood. Almost every major advance, from vaccines to astronomy, from civil rights to dismantling caste and racial hierarchies, happened because someone challenged the religious explanations of their time. But history is also full of tragic stories of people who paid a terrible price for asking questions. astronomers burned for studying the heavens, doctors jailed for saying diseases have natural causes, and philosophers silenced for suggesting that morality comes from human reasoning rather than divine command. The irony is hard to ignore. The very people who pushed humanity forward were often punished by those who wanted everything to stay exactly the same. Even today, blasphemy is still a crime in many countries where questioning religion can lead to social isolation, legal trouble, or even mob violence. And this continued criminalization has nothing to do with protecting faith from harm. It has everything to do with protecting powerful systems from being examined. When a society announces that religion must not be questioned, what it really means is that certain ideas and the people who profit from them must not be held accountable. The consequences of unquestioned belief are not limited to philosophy. They show up in real heartbreaking ways. Take the case of a young man who prayed desperately for a job and promised that if he got one, he would give his entire life to God. When the job finally came, he fulfilled that promise literally. He stepped in front of a train, believing his death was an offering. This wasn't insanity. It was the natural result of a worldview that places faith above logic and obedience above life itself. Think of the rituals where small children are forced to fast whole day, endure hunger, dehydration, and exhaustion, all because the adults around them believe their gods demand it. These children are pushed into discomfort and sometimes even medical danger, yet the entire practice is celebrated as devotion rather than abuse. Consider the rituals where people walk on burning coals, pierce their bodies with hooks, whip themselves, or crawl on their knees for kilometers, believing that pain is a currency that buys divine rewards. These dangerous acts are framed as devotion, even though they often cause infections, injuries, and long-term damage. Think about religious ceremonies where deafening loudspeakers blare hymns, chants, and prayers throughout the night. Temple speakers, church bells, mosque speakers, gurudwara music, shaking entire neighborhoods, disturbing newborns, the elderly, patients, students, and workers. Yet, the noise is defended as our culture, while common people silently suffer. Look at purity rituals where teenagers are forced to shave their heads, marry early, leave school, or follow oppressive dress codes in the name of honor, culture, or God. These practices restrict their choices for life but are still defended as sacred. And then there are the rituals that take place in the most private corners of society, where children too young to consent or even understand have their bodies cut in the name of purity, tradition, or divine command. Across different cultures and religions, boys and girls are subjected to genital mutilation, sometimes as public ceremonies, sometimes quietly inside homes, sometimes in clinics, and sometimes with crude tools handled by untrained elders. They are told it is sacred, that it is necessary, that it makes them clean or acceptable in the eyes of God. But the truth is far simpler and far darker. These are irreversible injuries carried out on bodies that cannot protest, justified by beliefs that have never been questioned. Science gives us a far clearer and more beautiful explanation. The people who rely on science, reason, and evidence, the atheists, the agnostics, the rationalists, do not force their worldview on anyone. They do not go door to door demanding that others accept evolution or that everyone must believe in the Big Bang. Scientific ideas spread not through threats or fear, but through demonstration, replication, and open discussion. You will never hear news stories about atheists marching through the streets demanding conversions or agnostics fighting among themselves in the name of disbelief, or crowds killing each other over biology, astronomy, or physics. No one has ever been stabbed for refusing to accept Darwin. No one has ever been burnt alive for questioning the age of the universe. The history of science has its debates, its disagreements, its corrections, but it has never needed violence to prove a point, because scientific truths do not depend on coercion to survive. These illusions about tradition, race, morality, and the structure of the universe survive only because they are rarely challenged. And this is exactly why blasphemy is not just a right, but something civilization truly means. Blasphemy is simply careful examination. Blasphemy is holding ideas accountable. It is the intellectual cleaning process that stops ideas from decaying into superstition and stops superstition from growing into tyranny. If an idea cannot survive a simple question, then the idea needs to be re-evaluated or left behind. What should never be given up is the freedom to ask the question in the first place. Religion is a human creation built by minds shaped by fear, curiosity, ignorance, and imagination. And if humans created it, humans also have every right to analyze it, criticize it, and change it. So when someone says, do not criticize religion, what they are actually saying is, do not expose the weak parts of a system that we know cannot survive honest examination. To forbid criticism is to reveal weakness. To fear questions is to show insecurity. Blasphemy is therefore not a sin at all. It is a duty. It is not an act of hatred, but an act of liberation. It is not a threat to society, but the oxygen that allows society to grow. It keeps civilization from becoming frozen in the past and provides the spark that stops ideas from turning into unquestionable dogma. Above all, it protects the one thing that makes us human: the freedom to think, to question, to reason, and to imagine a better world. To question is part of being human. To forbid questioning is deeply inhuman. And so we return to where we began, to that small, quiet, but incredibly powerful question: why? Why do we believe the things we believe? Why are some ideas treated as untouchable? Why should tradition win over evidence? Why should ancient scriptures be valued more than modern knowledge? Why should institutions escape scrutiny while ordinary people pay the price for their decisions? Asking these questions is not an attack on faith. It is a defense of humanity itself. Questioning religion does not destroy meaning. It protects meaning from being swallowed by superstition. To insist on the right to doubt is to insist on the right to grow. Blasphemy then is not the enemy of civilization. It is the very tool that makes civilization possible. It is my birthright. And if we want a future guided by reason, compassion, and freedom, instead of fear, obedience, and punishment, then it must be your birthright too. Thank you.